And welcome back to Habs Unfiltered. This is part 2 of episode 390. So I guess 391. Sure, we'll go with that.
Sure. 90.5.
90.5. Treg and Matt are still here. They've held on for a full day. They're troopers. And of course, part 2 of our special guest appearance of Spector's hockey, Lyle Richardson.
The only reason we're doing 2 parts is because I'm a long-winded cuss and this thing went well over the first hour. So welcome to part 2.
Well, I have no problem double monetizing one appearance.
Sweet pennies. Podcast money. Yes.
Yeah. Your checks in the mail, Lyle. Your checks in the mail.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, at least you'll be invited on board a ship, maybe.
Hooray!
If you ever get out here, there you go.
There we go.
Have you ever seen a ship?
Oh, I could say something cheap, but I'm just not going to bother. This is the clean hour. We're doing this because the kids are listening. We worked blue in the first hour. We're keeping it clean in the second hour. That doesn't seem to make any sense. Anyway, moving on.
Well, it's Crier Media that we did that first one for. We're going to be putting this on Crier Media as well. But yeah, Crier Media lets us do whatever the heck we want. But the hockey writers prefer a little bit more professionalism, which is odd. They let us be on. I don't know. We're just us. To our own detriment. So this episode, we'll go through all the rumors. We'll talk about all kinds of different things. So let's just dive right in, and let's start outside of the Canadiens for now, and just kind of start with, who do you know for sure is a buyer, and out of them, who's going to be the most aggressive?
Well, there's several teams that are going to be buyers. The usual suspects, of course, this time of year, the Toronto Maple Leafs will be buyers, of course. I expect the New York Rangers. I really think that the Islanders are going to be in there as well, especially because they're just barely hanging on right now. Lou Lamoriello's been looking for offense since last summer. That's been well documented, so I expect he's going to be busy. The Bruins, as dominant as they are, you look at their roster and you think, why would they want to be buyers? But I really do think Don Sweeney is going to want to load up because they're all in this year. Unquestionably, they're all in. This could be the last go around for Patrice Bergeron and for David Krejci, who came back, for this season. They want to win one more cup. And they figured this is the best opportunity they have. And I think that's been the ethos that's been driving the Bruins all season long. They all know that this could be the last best shot. So I definitely think they're going to be buyers. Now, whether they go big or just look at, okay, we'll bring in a couple of affordable depth signing. They are kind of limited by cap constraints. So they may have to get creative. Maybe get a team to retain salary. Maybe they do the 3-team deal where another team is a third-party broker to help spread dollars around. But I definitely see them being in there as well. And I think the defending Stanley Cup champion Avalanche are going to be buyers. They have been lacking a reliable second-line center since Nazem Kadri signed with the Flames. And if we move north to Edmonton, yeah, well, why not? Move north to Alberta, I was going to say, but Edmonton, because they seem more likely because they need blue line depth. And I wouldn't rule out the Flames either. I'm sure we've all heard rumors linking them to the Canadiens as well. They had interest in Josh Anderson last summer. Maybe that gets revisited, maybe it doesn't, but I definitely think the 2 Alberta teams are going to be in. And don't sleep on the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets are off to having talk. Rick Bowness has done a fantastic job there. He really has. This is looking like a team. They're jockeying with the Dallas Stars for first overall in the Western Conference. I know that Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM, has a reputation as a cautious manager. He doesn't usually make big acquisitions or anything like that. I think the biggest one that he's ever done was bringing in Paul Stastny the first time back in, I believe it was 2017. But I can see him getting in there this year. He's got a bit of cap space he can work with. And I can see him making at least one decent move to kind of improve his club's hopes for a deep playoff run.
Now that might be because it might be the last go around with Pierre-Luc Dubois on the team. You don't know.
Yeah, it's funny how that keeps popping up, isn't it? But it's a fair point. I mean, Dubois is going to be a restricted free agent with arbitration rights again this summer, and if he's unwilling to commit to a long-term deal with the Jets, they're going to have to trade him. It won't happen at this year's trade deadline. They're keeping him obviously because he's been an important part of that team. Rick Bowness has already said he's going to do everything he can to sell Dubois on staying longer. But it's just common sense. If they can't retain him, if it looks like he's going to free agency next summer, not this summer coming, you got to trade him and get some decent assets back. And if a club like Montreal that's loaded with promising young talent, if they're willing to go after him, then there's a fit that your team like that, then yeah, you can see Dubois being moved on to a club like that.
Now, you talked about Colorado, and you mentioned all the buyers. I want to go into some needs. Colorado, that one's obvious. They need a center and maybe 14 players who are healthy.
Yeah, if they get good health, yeah, it's less necessary. But even if they have a healthy roster, they still need that second line center position addressed. I mean, Comfort's doing a good job, but he's not Nazem Kadri, and they're really missing Kadri's experience and swagger at that position. So yeah, they're going to definitely be on the hunt, I think, for a second line center.
Would Taze make sense? I mean, I don't think so because of his contract, but is there any word on that?
Taze would make sense for them. It's if you can spread the cap dollars around. That would be something that would require not just the Blackhawks retaining half, but also getting, again, the third party broker in there to spread the dollars around. We always have to keep in mind here too, when we're talking about cap hit and things like that, we're talking about the remainder of their cap hit when we get to the trade deadline. Part of the reason why we're not seeing a lot of trade activity right now, and this has come up, I've noticed in the last week or so on social media, especially on Twitter, with people, the salary cap is salary cap this and the salary cap that. Well, the reason why the salary cap is flattened is because of we're still dealing with the consequences of a pandemic. But the real reason why is, look, the cap is what it is for this year. And you've got a lot of teams who want to be buyers and a lot of teams want to be sellers, but the ones who are buyers are waiting to accrue cap space. You've got a team right now that has maybe 1.5 million cap space. That could be 5 million by the time we get to March 3rd. So you may have enough room perhaps to take on the remainder of Jonathan Taze's $10.5 million contract. But even then, even if you have enough, you maybe want to leave a bit of wiggle room for other things. So that's where you would then ask the Blackhawks to take on half of the cap hit and then spread it around with another team. So, that's also what the Avalanche are looking for. I believe if memory serves, because I looked at it today, I think 5.6 mil is what they've got in projected trade deadline cap space right now. That's going to depend on some other factors. Of course, Landeskog as well, being if he's still sidelined by that point, that's a big factor goes into it. If Landeskog is still out until, let's say, the playoffs, if it's a Kucherov situation, then yeah, they'd have the room. Then yeah, sure, you can look at going after somebody like Taze, or maybe you go after somebody more affordable in terms of salary, like Vancouver's Bo Horvat. The problem with that, though, is, we already know the Canucks want a big return. They're going to want a good young center to come back in that deal. They're going to want a first-round pick, of course. They're going to want a high-end prospect. But they're going to want talent that can help them both right away and down the road. And that's where it could get difficult for a team like the Avalanche.
Takes me to Vancouver. They're a surprise seller this year. I mean, they're supposed to be a playoff bubble team, and instead they're flirting with a Bedard pick.
Yeah, and that's just that situation is just a real dog's dinner. At some point, we're gonna hear a behind the scenes episode, I'm sure, on somebody's podcast down the road, and we'll learn all the dirty, gory details of what happened this season in Vancouver. But yeah, they're going to be selling. Horvat's going to be gone. I know that there's talk that, well, the Canucks are gauging the market right now. Elliot Friedman seems to think they might circle back and see if maybe they can't work a deal out. But honestly, when you listen to what Jim Rutherford, their hockey ops president, was saying earlier this week, that what they offered Horvat, for their contract offer, was based on his performance up to this season. And what his camp is looking for is now based on what he's doing now, which is on pace for a 50-goal performance. So he's going to want much more. Basically, he wants much more than what JT Miller got. I think from what I've read and heard, that they basically offered Horvat pretty much the same deal, but they don't want to go over the 56 mil that they invested in Miller, and he wants more than that. And who can blame him? So, unless the Canucks surprise us, because remember, we went through the JT Miller is going to be traded at some point dance last summer, and then, oh shit, while I was starting my summer vacation, they turn around and sign him to a contract as I'm getting into the middle of my second daiquiri. So maybe the same sort of thing happens with Horvat before the trade deadline, but I don't know. I just get a kind of a different vibe out of this, especially, since you had Rutherford pretty much almost definitively saying, this is how much we want to give him, and we're not comfortable with going above that.
Seems like Vancouver's a dog's breakfast. You got the JT Miller scenario going on. They're crapping on their own captain. They're making their coach cry, literally cry.
I mean, literally cry. Bruce Boudreau deserves better than this. If I can just go off on a rant here, just briefly, I understand that the Canucks management, they can hire and fire whoever they want as coaches. Remember the old saying, coaches are hired to be fired. If they're not happy with the way Bruce Boudreau is coaching, and I realize Boudreau was not their guy. Okay. Boudreau was hired first, and then by Stan Schmiel, and then like 72 hours later, they hired Rutherford as their, hockey ops president. And it was like, oh, wow, that's kind of awkward. Okay. So Boudreau isn't Rutherford's guy. But if you're not happy with how he's coaching your team, then ask him to resign or fire him. Replace him on an interim basis with one of your assistant coaches until you can bring in the guy you really want, which, the worst kept secret in the world, it's Rick Tocchet. Okay? Don't leave this guy sitting here with that sword of Damocles hanging over his head that everybody knows is going to drop at any moment. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the players, because there's a lot of those players really like Bruce Boudreau. And a lot of them are blaming themselves for the situation Boudreau finds themselves in. Bruce Boudreau has been in this game a long, long time. He doesn't deserve this shit. He's being treated very shabbily right now by Patrick Allvan, the general manager, by Rutherford, and by extension, the owner of the team, who, quite frankly, his insistence on retool over rebuild is what is going to keep the Canucks a mediocre franchise until either he wakes up and realizes, hey, we need to rebuild, or he sells the team to somebody who's more willing to actually, run a real hockey team.
Reminds me of another team.
A decade of another team.
Yeah.
So if I look at Vancouver's, the way that I'm on Cap Friendly right now, and I'm looking at some of their contracts, and they're in really cap hell right now with some of their long-term contracts, and some of them were from one GM, some of them for the other.
Yeah.
But you look at a guy like Besser. Like his name's been thrown out there the whole year. You've got the JT Miller. Is he going to move even though he signed the extension? Another one that's out there is Quinn Hughes, and I'm kind of looking at his name possibly being dangled out there just to move. Like he's an asset that can move. He doesn't have a no move clause. Do you think that maybe he could go somewhere? You know, maybe a team that needs some depth from, or no, not necessarily depth, but offense from the back end. And I'll even throw Montreal out there. Like, the guy can't really play defense, but the guy knows what to do when it comes time to put the puck in the net or run a power play. So do you think that maybe he could be one of those like sacrificial lamb type deals that could be made to possibly bring your captain back?
Matt, I would not rule it out. I haven't heard Quinn Hughes's name come up at all, not even in a far-fetched sort of way. But a lot of rumblings that I've been hearing too is that the only player on that team who isn't going anywhere unless he wants to go is Elias Pettersson.
Right.
He's the only untouchable. You know, Quinn Hughes would be in that untouchable depending on the offer, right?
Right.
That would not shock me. I'll put it to this, just the way that, because let's be honest, Jim Rutherford, we know back when he was a general manager with the Penguins and before that with the Hurricanes, he was not averse to making very surprising moves, you know, which more often than not would help his team. And trading Quinn Hughes at the trade deadline, it would be a shock, but it would, you know, but it ultimately wouldn't be surprising if you know his background. I would say at this stage, you can't rule anything out with the Canucks. You know, I know there's a lot of Canucks fans that are screaming, no, trade JT Miller before his new contract kicks in and use the dollars to keep Bo Horvat. Who could say that doesn't happen?
Right.
You know, I mean, say this for Rutherford, he's good at keeping us guessing. But, you know, you got to figure there's going to be, he's laid it out what he wants to do and what he's looking for if he goes and trades his guys.
Right.
And he's not necessarily looking for, if I trade Bo Horvat, it's not going to be for picks and prospects. I'm sure there will be a pick and a prospect in there. But what he's really looking for are young players who can jump in and help them right now. And he said it. He's looking at players who are either on entry level contracts or coming off them or just come off them and are new ones who could be, maybe they need a fresh start. Now, he's already done that with Ethan Bear, and that one worked out, I would say. You know, he's been one of the few bright spots in an otherwise miserable season for the Canucks. But Jack Studnicka, that didn't seem to work out quite as well. There's a couple other guys that he brought in that were kind of in that same sort of boat. And an excellent point was made. I can't remember who made it, but that doesn't matter. What they basically said was, at some point, though, that reclamation projects are fine, but only to a point. If you're using that as your means of primary means of retooling, it's not really going to work, because, I mean, as good as Ethan Bear's been, and, you know, these other kids that they brought in haven't moved the needle here for the Canucks. They really haven't. They haven't been impact players. So if you're going to move a guy like Horvat, you've got to be looking at somebody you bring in that you think is going to be an impact player. And if you were to move out Horvat to, let's say you ship him to Carolina,
Right.
Okay, because they've been linked to the Hurricanes have been linked to Horvat. Well, Carolina is going to be a bit, you know, kind of little tight for the cap. They could swing
They just lost Pacioretty.
But to your
Right.
point, though, they just lost Pacioretty, so maybe that's a fit. But who would they take? Who would they send back that would
Right.
kind of fall into that narrative that that Rutherford was talking about reclamation projects? And I don't know if you guys can follow where I'm going with this, but I'm talking about a former Hab, and his name is Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi has not panned out as well as they expected as a second line center. They tried him there this season for the first couple of months before they replaced him with Paul Stastny. It wasn't working out.
Right.
So maybe Kotkaniemi goes the other way. The only thing I could see that might not make that happen is his contract. 4.8 mil for the next 6-7 years.
Something like that.
Yeah, that could be a deal breaker there. But that's the kind of guy I think that he might be looking at. So who can say, right? And no, I don't think that the Hurricanes would agree to retain half of Kotkaniemi's salary. not for 6 or 7 years. No team wants to carry dead cap space that long.
Right.
If you can at all avoid it.
On the cap and on these buyers, the buyers are clearly up against the cap. And Treg, you wrote about this on the Hockey Writers. It's a player that the Canadiens are going to be shopping as soon as he comes back off LTIR.
In Monahan. So the issue with Monahan is his $6.5 million. Colorado's been linked to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Colorado has $6.5 million, but so what I've been thinking with Monahan especially is how do they make that happen? It's either going to have to be a third team. Montreal retains some of the salary, which they also don't have much cap space. They could get more now that they're going to have maybe a couple other players on LTIR.
Yeah.
But I think Monahan's gone. I think the trade deadline, Monahan and Montreal's getting a second first for Monahan. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, or at least a top prospect. And who do you think? Do you think Colorado's the guy's taking him? We already talked about Tays and how they can't really afford him. Monahan's cheaper, but not the cheapest.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of contract, but I mean, again, it's going to depend on how much cap space, obviously, the Avs still have accrued by that point. And, I think you could see Montreal retain some salary because, as we just said, with the news that came out about with Caulfield being sidelined, of course, with Slafkovsky, as you said, it's not a lot of money coming off the books, but
every little bit counts.
Every little bit counts. Exactly. It gives a little bit of wiggle room there. Or maybe there's another third party broker scenario. That could be possible as well, to spread that around. If not, then, maybe you look around and see what other teams are in need of centers or more of a more versatile forward, because Monahan can also play on the wing. So if you're looking for a guy with that kind of versatility, if you're a cup contender or a just playoff contender, I mean, maybe there's a spot for him in Boston. Maybe there's a place for him in Toronto. Maybe the Islanders would take him on, because again, the Islanders are good. The Islanders are desperately looking for. I don't know if Monahan would be a fit there though with the Islanders. The Islanders need a sniper. They need a sniper to put alongside Matthew Barzal. So, I don't think Monahan necessarily would be a fit there, but with some of the other clubs that are going to be buyers who are looking for that depth up front, a guy who's versatile, who's strong in the face-off circle to boot. You could definitely be a fit to some of those other teams.
I talked to Blaine about Washington.
Washington would be a good one.
I
too.
threw out there.
Washington could be a good one as well. I think it's less of an urgency for them now since they got Nicky Backstrom back.
And that was the kind of the argument that we had back and forth.
Yeah.
It was mostly the guy can play the wing, but he can win a face off, but he's there as a backup unless one, if one of them goes down, right?
Yeah, and he plays a decent two-way game. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. When you're throwing in about versatility, that's the kind of guy that could be a fit for a lot of these playoff buyers.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been told by several people online, which is clearly the real world, that Monahan will not get a first-round pick. With all the buyers and their needs and the fact that the Canadiens can take on a contract and eat cap, I disagree.
As do I. Well, first of all, right off the bat, Sean Monahan already got Montreal a first-round pick. Not in this year's draft, no. In 2024 or 2025, depending on what kind of weird-ass breakdown, whenever the weird-ass breakdown is of that one. It's hilarious to look at that at Cap Friendly and just see the column just stretches to read all the conditions. But the condition bottom line is Montreal's getting a first-round pick from Calgary within the next 3 years. So he already brought them a first-round pick. But you look at last year's trade deadline. I mean, teams are a lot more pressed for cap space this year compared to last year, but it was still an issue last year. And you got, you look at the returns that he got for Chirot, the returns he got for Toffoli, and on it goes. I don't see why that he couldn't get. I mean, now if Ken Hughes can't get a first round pick or a top prospect for him, if he gets a couple of second rounders, well, let's not be disappointed in that either. He's not just going to just sit back. Right. I mean, if we've learned one thing about Ken Hughes in his year as a general manager is he will not make a move unless he gets the deal he wants. He doesn't settle. if the market for Sean Monahan is just a 3rd round pick and that's it, if for whatever reason it ends up being one of those situations where, okay, we're into the last hour of the trade deadline and the music's about to stop, maybe he flips him for a 3rd, but honestly, I don't think so. I think he would turn around and just go, well, you know what? We liked what Monahan brought to this team anyway. We're going to keep him. Then we're going to look at re-signing him in the offseason, because that has already been talked about. So if he doesn't get, I'll be very surprised if he gets a return where he just settled.
What do you think with Dadonov and Drouin, both on expiring contracts? You would expect that the trade deadline, they could get rid of them. They had a rough start. However, they have been playing well lately before Drouin got injured again. What do you think is the
Possibility they could be moved?
Possibility they could be moved, especially with their contracts.
Yeah, I think a better question would be, do you think there's a market for them? And right now, no. There is no market for Jonathan Drouin. There is no market for Evgeny Dadonov right now. There just isn't. Just because their first half, their season thus far hasn't been that much right home. But yes, sure, the last few games they played better, but you're going to need a bigger sample size. If you're going to be able to move these guys for anything of value by March 3rd, well, Drouin's out until the All-Star break. And I think that I think if that window hasn't closed, it's just about there on him. Dadonov could be a different story, but again, they're going to need to really play well right up to the trade deadline if you're going to get anything for them, because I'm telling you, honestly, guys, there is no market for those two right now. Nobody is interested in them.
I truly believe Montreal. I truly believe Montreal thought when they got Dadonov, this was going to be a good
absolutely
tip for them at the trade deadline.
Absolutely.
It just didn't work out.
You look at how he played in Vegas. You look at how he played in Ottawa, and where he was before in Florida. He always put up decent numbers, but just this season, it just hasn't worked out for him. That happens, not every acquisition is going to be a gold ticket to a better player or a gold ticket that's going to get you a 1st round pick as a trade asset. But with somebody like Monahan, I still think that value's there. Everybody looks at, he came back, played well after coming off a 2nd hip surgery last season, 17 points in 25 games. The foot injury, it happens. That wasn't like, oh no, if that was his hip again, then it'd be like, okay,
that'd be red flags all over the place. Yeah.
But hey, busted foot, it happens, so there's still value there. And if he picks up where he left off, then I wouldn't rule out the possibility that he can fetch either a 1st round pick or a high-end prospect from Montreal.
Or both in a bidding war.
Well, like look what the Canadiens need.
Yeah.
Right. Look what they need. They need a goaltending prospect, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they can pull one out of a team that already has an established starter, or already has maybe an established 1-2. Maybe just kind of lasso one of those guys. My question next is the value on a guy like Joel Edmondson, who's got a year left on his contract at $3.5 million. He's a kind of a meat and potatoes kind of player, kind of just is there, does what he needs to do, and is a more or less a guy that you want to see in the playoffs, and that's been to the Cup, that's won a Cup.
Are you asking that because his name sounds like a town in New Brunswick?
Yes.
and sound and rhymes with a certain northern city in Alberta. yeah because that apparently the Oilers are interested in Edmondson, and they're also interested in Vladislav Gavrikov with the Blue Jackets Columbus, as well. A lot of Oilers fans are not happy about that. They want to see them go after Jacob Chychrun in Arizona, but the Oilers don't consider Chychrun to be the type of defenseman they need, and the type of defenseman they feel they need is somebody who plays more of a physical shutdown style rather than another puck mover. I mean, yes, Jacob Chychrun, big body guy, moves the puck well, but he's not renowned his renown is as a puck moving scoring defenseman. It's not as a physical shutdown guy. He can play defense, of course. He's not in the Quinn Hughes camp. He can play defense, but they need somebody who's going to be a lot more defensively responsible. And so that's why they're looking at Gavrikov. That's why they're looking at Edmondson. And of course, the analytics guys are losing their minds about that. But as we all know, you get to the playoffs. Well, it's again, it was like Sherratt. Why did the Florida Panthers go after Sherratt? You know, look at his analytics from last season. They're terrible. And it's like, yes, but look at how he played in the playoffs from Montreal the previous year. And that's why the Panthers wanted him. That's why the Detroit Red Wings went after him and you know, paid him a long-term contract last summer. And that's why teams like Edmonton or somebody else will go after Edmondson. What I found was interesting, though, was Ken Hughes was saying that you know, he had spoke to Edmondson, and Josh Anderson as well, and just basically said, yeah, guys, I know there's a lot of stuff out there, rumors, you know, a lot of it's not necessarily true. You know, if I'm, you know, if anything's going along where we're talking about trading you, we will talk to you. We won't leave you in the dark, blah, 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 which is good to hear. But to say that with that kind of confidence says, okay, Montreal's not shopping him, but they're not turning a deaf ear to offers either.
Right.
If you come to Ken Hughes and you're like, I will give you my first round pick and I will give you, you know, one of my top prospects, you know, I'm sure you're going to have his attention. You know, you may have to sweeten that a little bit more. I don't know, but a first and a high end prospect, I think you're definitely going to have his attention. The thing too is there's the cost certainty there. Edmondson's on an affordable contract. He's got another year on it. So you've got cost certainty for the remainder of this season and next season. So that makes him attractive as well. So, you know, I wouldn't say it's absolutely 100% that he's out the door, but I would still leave him in that category that he's a potential trade candidate for the right price, the right offer. Yeah, I could see him being gone by March 3rd. If he doesn't get it, then again, he's under no pressure to trade him. And who's to say that he can't trade him in the offseason? Again, he's got a year left on his contract. There's cost certainty there. You can't move him by March 3rd. You can maybe move him during the draft or maybe leading up to July 1st.
Do you think Kent Hughes gets his third first round pick that he says he wants?
I think he can. I'd be a lot more confident in it if guys like I said, yeah, like if Monahan and Drouin and Dadonov had been healthier. You know, we already know Monahan was being productive. But if Dadonov and Drouin had been healthier and more productive, then I would be sitting here going, one of those three guys is going to fetch you a first round pick, just based on your track record as, you know, with doing trades. I'm still not ruling it out. You know, I mean, remember last year when the talk of, oh, Montreal should get a first round pick for Toffoli. Oh, no way. Montreal should get a first round pick for Sherratt. Oh, are you nuts? Are you crazy? It'll never happen. You know, and, you know, oh, Montreal could get a first round pick for Romanov. Oh, get out of town. Romanov's okay, but no, he hasn't really panned out yet. Let's see what, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it if he doesn't get one. And then it'll obviously be because the market just wasn't there at that point. But
who's your bet on who gets moved by the Canadiens at the deadline?
My bet,
Yeah.
Monahan.
That's it.
That's my sure bet that he's going.
Okay.
As I said, Monahan for sure. I don't rule out Edmondson. Anderson, I think, is kind of a dark horse one. I know there are teams that really like him, but I just don't get the sense that Montreal wants to move him. You know,
Hughes has said he
left
likes
field.
Anderson for the future.
Yeah.
He
Yes.
says he does like him for the future.
yes.
So
I mean, he's young enough. He's 28. The contract's not horrible. You know, it'll look a lot better this summer when when some of those other contracts come off the books. And of course, we know Price isn't going to be back. Every time I say that, I hate it, but we know Carey Price isn't going to be able to come back. So there's 10.5 mil off the books. So now you're down to, I think, what is it, 63 mil that you've got invested for next season. So you've got about 20 mil in cap room. We know a nice chunk of that, about 8 mil, is going to go to Cole Caulfield, but that's still going to leave you enough for you know, other moves that you're going to make.
is there any room to move Gallagher with his contract?
Yeah, that's the problem. You know, there are teams that would take Brendan Gallagher in a heartbeat. They love the way this. Yeah, he's one of those pain in the ass guys you hate to play against, but you love to have him on your team. Even with the injuries that he's had in the last couple of years, there are teams that would love to have him. And if he was only had a year or two left on that contract, yeah, you could move him. Unless they're willing to retain half, then you're talking about, that long stretch of dead cap space on your books. So, if Ken Hughes can pull that off without having to retain salary or throw in something really sweet in the deal, like a Lane Hudson, shut up, don't say that. Yeah, if he could pull that off, then make him general manager of the year right away. But otherwise, no, I don't think there really is. And of course, Gallagher, controls his fate as well, so yeah, I don't think that he'll be going anywhere.
Who's a left field player on the Canadiens roster you think might actually go sometime at the trade deadline or in the summer?
Wow, that's a good question. I hadn't thought of what sort of a dark horse trade candidate would be. There's so many names we hear fly around all the time. I can't really say that Christian Dvorak would be like a dark horse, because his name has come up from time to time. Just about everybody in Montreal has come up from time to time. We know Montembeault's not going anywhere. That's a certainty. Ken Hughes assured us of that. Oh my, right now at this stage, guys, I can't really think of any, unless you throw a couple of names out at me and maybe we'll see. None of you guys can even think of any either. So
the only ones I can think of are guys I wouldn't want traded in the first place.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. Nick Suzuki's not going anywhere. Cole Caulfield's not going anywhere. Kirby Dach's not going anywhere. Anderson could, but Montembeault's not moving. Caden Gooley's not going anywhere. Jack Eye's not going anywhere.
What about Harris? Jordan Harris.
That one's kind of an interesting one. That one I would say would be sort of like an out of left field. Whoa, didn't see that coming.
Because Hughes has mentioned he has a lot of left-handed defense depth that he's willing to look at moving.
And you look at too, when Matheson came back, and Harris, let's be fair, he's acquitted himself well. I like the kid. I think that he's acquitted himself well, but when Matheson came back off of injury for the first time, it was Harris who wound up being the healthy scratch, even though everybody was singing his praises. He wasn't getting quite as much praise as being singled as much as Gooley or Jack Eye, or even Kovacevic for that matter. But it was still a surprise that he was the one who wound up becoming the healthy scratch. So yeah, perhaps maybe Harris would be that one, sort of like, oh, okay. Didn't see that coming, but then you think about it afterwards and go, well, yes, that would make sense.
Weidman
wouldn't surprise me if he was traded. Let's put it that way. It wouldn't surprise. And I don't mean that to disparage the guy. He's a good depth addition for them. He's great in the room. He's got the experience. He's a good guy to have on a team, but if he gets traded, you're not shocked if it happens.
Be shocked someone wants to make the move for him,
yeah.
But maybe a Boston, because that's your Mike Riley move.
Yeah,
get someone super cheap and
exactly. Maybe it's somebody that gets in there like that. Yeah, but as far as the Habs go, I think we pretty much kind of nailed down who's going to be the guys that move and who are the guys that potentially but won't, and guys that absolutely aren't for this season. So
Hoffman, Armia, and Druid for McKinnon. That's what's going to happen. That's my
Hoffman. There's one. Sorry to say, no, there it is. Hoffman is one that could be a bit of a surprise. And I say that even though people are like, oh yeah, but he's got another year in that contract and it's over $4 million and he's been kind of up and down with his production, but he can still score. Yes, he's a one-dimensional player, but he can still, as we saw in that game against the Jets, so that wicked snipe, he can still score, and put him with a team that has a little more depth. perhaps he could be a good addition there. So yeah, I was sitting there and guys, it's funny because I'm sitting there and I'm going over I know I'm missing there's somebody there. Other veterans that could surprise me. Hoffman, that one, yeah, that would be kind of out of left field. Oh, I didn't see that coming.
Be good. Hoffman for their top prospect and a first.
But he's good on the power play.
Yes, yes.
Send him to Calgary for Dustin Wolf.
There you go.
Buffalo for Devin Levy.
Yeah.
Calgary wants Josh Anderson, guys. If when it comes to Montreal, they want Josh Anderson.
Right.
So,
Actually, I think if the deal's right and it involves Dustin Wolf, I don't know if I'd mind that too much of a trade.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
is-
As always, depends on the return.
Well, I brought up teams that had goaltending or that had
And-
stellar, I would say stellar goaltending this season with Markstrom being
Yeah.
the way that he is. But last year, the guy was on fire.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. And then now you've got Dan Vladar as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to bring him back. So if you get a 1-2 punch of Vladar and Markstrom, how much longer are you going to continue? I'm going to say stringing along, but having Dustin Wolf within your organization and not moving him on. The guy is only getting better.
Yeah.
His 2 years in the AHL, last year he was 33-9-4 with a 924 save and a 2.35 goals against. And this year in 28 games, he's 22-5 with a 931 save percentage, 4 shutouts and a 2.1 goals against.
Yeah.
And they were saying this guy's too small to play, being a 6-foot goaltender that is about the size of a beanpole. But the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
My interest, sorry to cut you off there,
That's
is
okay.
why Buffalo, Devin Levy's name even comes up. Because Anderson's 700 years old. He's retiring any minute now.
Well, it's
right?
more Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen maybe taking the next step, right?
Yeah.
He's starting
Love
to-
that name.
Right?
I do too. I do too. That's worth 50 points in a Scrabble board.
But it's kind of the emergence of him. And you got to think, Levi was a draft pick of the Florida Panthers.
That's right.
When they already had Bobrovsky, they already had Spencer Knight and everything. So he was a disposable player at the time.
Yeah.
I just
but
look at
where does
Buffalo.
Levy play now?
Northeastern. Northeastern. Yeah.
And who does he play with?
His son, Jackie. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm just saying, like, Devin Levy is one of the top young goalie prospects going.
Yeah.
And Buffalo's always had goaltending issues since they got rid of Ryan Miller.
Yeah, I really don't see them, Trig. I think I see where you're going with this. I hope I do. And it's like I don't see them parting with him right now.
Me neither.
Again,
That's what I'm saying. Like everyone says, "Oh, we got to get Levy. We got to get Levy," and I'm like, I don't see them parting with.
Not until they've seen a bigger sample size of Luukkonen's work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I mean, I know they have that other guy,
Portillo. That's the one I think they would go
Portillo,
for.
I think, is the one. Yes,
Correct.
That's the guy. That's the one they may be willing to move. Excuse me, my screen's wobbling. My cat's decided to take a stroll back and forth. Bye.
Well, he's a 6'6" goalie, so that would fit the kind of idea that the new modern goalie.
Right.
But I don't like. I would love to get Devin Levy. I would love to get Dustin Wolf. But I think if the Habs are going for something like that, it's Dustin Wolf that you got to look at because there's nowhere for Dustin Wolf to go.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So
That's right.
you could probably, all right, Calgary, you got this guy wasting away.
He's
know
going to
what
be
you
a
want.
trade chip unless they're going to
Yep.
turn around and unload Vlader, or they're going to unload Markstrom. And Markstrom, you can't. So yeah, let's be realistic here. Darth Vlader is the guy you end up moving. If you don't move him, well, then it's going to have to be Dustin Wolf because you just, like you said, you just can't let this guy sit and rot in your system.
Yeah.
So
He's an asset. Use it as a trade chip if you're not going to have him on your roster.
Yeah. And
Huffman
Vladar's
and Allen for Wolf
right?
done.
Well, like Vladar's on a great contract. He just signed it.
Yeah,
He signed it in October.
exactly.
2.2 mil.
That's their
For-
tandem. Their tandem's Markstrom and Blader. So
And I'm saying right now, if they go to Calgary for Wolf and they say, well, we want Anderson, and then that's when Hughes says, well, I want Wolf plus.
Yep.
And you make the deal. I have no issue with that at all.
yeah, neither would I.
I honestly think that's going to be a draft day deal because Milan Lucic is coming off the books.
Yep.
Right.
So that's $5.5 million, right? He's making 6.5. So you can fit Anderson under that.
Well,
They play a similar style, except Anderson can skate.
and maybe that's what Hughes was also maybe kind of cryptically referring to. If we want to kind of think a little more conspiratorially minded here, when
Let's
he
do
says
it.
that he sees him as sort of like, oh yeah, we like him for the future. We like him for the future. But do you like him? Yeah. Do you like him for the future on the roster, or do you like him as a future trade chip to address another need that brings in an asset like a Dustin Wolf?
Because let's be honest, Caden Primo's not making the NHL.
No, it's a shame, and but unless there's a big change in him between now and next season, yeah, I have to agree. But goaltending has always been Montreal's strength, going back decades. You go back in the long line, and I don't need to rattle them off because we all know who they are. But that's been an issue for me, the last 2 years, where I've just been looking, and it's like, who's in their pipeline to be the heir apparent to Carey Price?
Doves and DeChow, really, but
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of DeChow, but you look at his SHL numbers, he's still the backup there. He hasn't won the starting role, so
there's nobody there who leaps out at you like Price did, where you can say, yeah, this kid's got the goods, he's gonna do it. So yeah, if you've got to make a trade to do it, then make the trade to do it. And if it costs you Anderson to bring in somebody who's going to secure your goaltending future, because let's also be honest, once Jake Allen's done with this contract, yes, Allen's there, and bless him, because he's there. He's doing a terrific job being there, to mentor, to not just, Montembeault, but all the other young guys. He's well liked on that team, and he wanted to be there. He wants to stay. Bless him for that. But after this contract, if he isn't traded before this contract's up, he's not going to be brought back. He won't be re-signed. The net is, I think, is Montembeault's for as long as he wants it, until he either plays himself out of the job right now. But is Montembeault necessarily our long-term starter for the future?
No.
Again, yeah, jury's out. So you've got to have somebody who's got the pedigree that you can look at and say, yes, that's going to be the guy. And they don't have that in their system. And there's not a lot of real big standout goaltender prospects really around the league. I mean, you got Casa is another one.
Sebastian Cossa in Detroit. Yeah.
Yes. But even there's been a bit of,
he's been very hit or miss.
Yeah.
For a pick that high.
You're right, Matt. There's been some questions about that this season.
What about that guy in Carolina they just sent down?
I always pronounce his name
Kochekov, something like that. But he had a hell of a
Kochekov.
The problem with Carolina is they're so good defensively. It's like the guy Detroit got. They got him because what a season this guy had, and he's really not that great.
No,
it's because Carolina plays so good in front of these guys.
Yep,
it inflates their stats. So you got to be careful.
Though to be fair to Freddie Anderson, though. The underappreciated Freddie Anderson. Yep. I mean, remember, he spent 6 years seeing more rubber than a dead skunk on the Trans-Canada Highway when he was in Toronto, and played very well, and was always made the scapegoat by the Leafs and their fans because they couldn't get out of the first round because, he missed a save once in a while. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, he goes to Carolina where he's appreciated and he's playing well. So Freddie Anderson is a very good goaltender, but your point is well taken about their defense, though. It absolutely is.
Right.
Yeah.
But you even look at the goaltending prospects that are coming up.
Yeah.
And, do you use one of your draft picks to one of your, it's not necessarily a first round pick. Do you use, say, a second round pick, or even depending on what the market is?
Yeah.
To go after a defense or go after a goaltender.
Yeah.
Because right now, like the midterm rankings came out, and Carson Bjarnsson's number 1 from Brandon. You've got Michael Harball from Omaha, and then you've got Trey Augustine, who just played for the Americans at the juniors.
Yeah.
And they're all different type of goalies. You've got the traditional really big goalie, and then you've got the more athletic guy in Augustine. So it's hard to say, but for what Treg was saying, like I think Wolf would be an excellent target. Yeah. I don't think Levi's going anywhere. You've still got Askarov in Nashville.
Yeah.
You got Jesper Wallstead, etc.
Wallstead's
Minnesota.
The other one. Yes, I was trying to remember. Yeah, Wallstead as well.
I don't think that it's going to come within. I'm a big Primo fan, but I think his ceiling is probably backup at this point.
Yeah.
Or AHL
Yeah.
player. Because
Right.
he's struggling in Laval.
Well, it says
Of
a
course,
lot.
Laval has terrible defense, but
Yeah, but guys, it says a lot though when they called him up after Jake Allen got hurt, and they just kept going back to Monty every
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah,
But-
it
but-
looks
but-
to me
but-
like he's not really in their long-term plan.
Right. But when
No.
when they put him in against Florida, when I was sitting at home watching the game for that third period, I was like, this isn't a game I want to see him in on.
yeah.
But the team started playing with a little bit more urgency
Mhm.
in front of him. And I think that'll help out.
Yeah.
Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we've reached our limit.
Okay.
Is there any final thoughts? We're gonna start with Treg and Matt, and then we'll end it with the all-star, the chief of rumors.
The premier
But, Trey,
étoile, the first star.
I just gotta say is how do pandas greet their friends? With bear hugs. You're welcome.
Dad jokes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
Dad
that's,
jokes.
If I would have known that, I would have had one lined up. But yeah, I've got nothing. Be interesting to see moving forward what this team's going to look like. So what these line combinations are going to look like. As we record, they're playing the Leafs tonight. It's never really an easy out for them. We'll see how it goes. I hope for the best and hope that this injury to Caulfield isn't going to be a longer term thing that's going to be a detriment to his young career.
This is a year you want, if you're going to have injuries, this is the year to have it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm just glad Matt didn't say 110% or pucks in deep or any of that crap.
Gotta put the pressure on, get the pucks
Yeah.
in deep,
No
give it
pressure.
110%.
Yeah, well, the guys are all playing for each other today, here on the podcast. Tregsy get in there, mix it up with the guys. Matty there, he kept a good eye on the analytics and on the numbers for us and on the
Yeah.
numbers. And, Chief there, Blaney. He great job hosting as always. I'm a little tired on a long haul today, but good work by the boys. A great team after all.
Yeah.
And scene.
Yeah.
Back to Kelly Rudy.
Very well done. Very well done.
Now, Lyle, any final thoughts from you other than completely nailing that?
I would just say very quick, just two thoughts very quickly. First of all, to your point here, guys, this is the first year of a rebuild. It's often messy. It's never pretty. But there are a lot of good things with this team this year compared to the Dogs dinner you saw last season. They are a better team than what we saw last season. There are a lot of positives here going forward to look toward, and it's going to suck to miss the playoffs again, but at least there's better days ahead. And if you're looking forward to trades, don't look for anything of any real significance, I don't think, until we get after the All-Star break. Once we're after the All-Star break, we're into that final month, those final 4 weeks. That's when business is going to pick up as always. And as teams accrue more cap space, that's when we're going to see things really, really start to go. Guys like Bo Horvat, I think you're going to go. Two other guys to keep an eye on, Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko out of St. Louis. I think a lot of their future is going to depend on what happens in the next 4 weeks with St. Louis, if they're in the race or if they fall out. So keep an eye on those two guys. Chicago Blackhawks, we should know probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks if Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are going to stay or will they go. So keep an eye out for that stuff. We got a lot of big names in this year's trade market, a lot of big names. It's an unusual year, so keep an eye out. I think it could be a really exciting time.
Lyle, I want to thank you for coming on and doing not just one, but 2 shows for us.
2 minutes in one.
All
There
in
we
one
go.
day. All in one day.
Yes.
So where can our listeners and our viewers find you?
Well, right off the bat, of course, my website, spectorshockey.net, where you will find your morning coffee headlines. I'm up bright and early every morning to post those up for you, as well as all the latest trade rumors that are making the rounds. You can also find me. I have a almost daily column every week, 5 days a week with the hockey news. Again, doing a rumor roundup. And I'm also on Bleacher Report, doing a whole bunch of different things there, not just hockey rumors and that sort of thing. I just recently completed a mock draft after the World Juniors. Spoiler alert, Connor Bedard is number one. So there you go. I know, shocking, right?
No.
Yeah, the devil you say.
Had a terrible World Juniors.
Didn't score one Michigan.
There, not one Michigan. There he is. Yeah, what a bum. And I also have my column here with the local paper here in PI, The Guardian, every 2 weeks with them. And if you read German, you can find me on Ice Hockey News over in Germany. I write a weekly column with them as well. So I get around. I will
like
never,
Blades X.
I promise you, I will never sing on the show again if you have me back.
Well, yeah, we don't mind. But I want to thank everybody who has tuned in, who has watched us on YouTube. I want to thank our new partners at Crier Media, our other current partners at the Hockey Writers for sharing our stuff and putting our show out there. And to you guys who are watching and listening, I really want to thank you guys for interacting with us, sending us emails and comments and triggering some of the rants that Treg goes on. They're entertaining. Keep trolling him, please. And again, thank you for listening. And if you're talking about it, so are we.